Hello, and today we are going to be reviewing a game called Metaphor ReFantazio. I am not Oliver. I'm instead hosting it in his stead. He did not play the game because he doesn't like great games. But yeah, we're going to be reviewing Metaphor. Metaphor is a JRPG made by Atlus, published by Sega. It was actually, fun fact, I didn't know this. It was announced back in 2016 under the name Project ReFantasy, which
Wait,
is
was
pretty
it?
crazy. It was,
Wait,
yeah.
what? I didn't
It
know
was.
that. That's mental.
Yeah, and so then 8 years later, it was released in October 2024. And it was also nominated for Game of the Year, if people didn't know. But yeah, we're reviewing it because it's a really long game, and it took us 6 months in total for all three of us to beat it. Both me, Lewis, and Alex completed it. We're big fans of the Persona series, so we're definitely gonna play this one. Lewis, because he's what's the word? Those people we don't like. Um,
What?
hipsters. He also played Shin Megami Tensei as well. So yeah, he loves these types of games.
I'm not a hipster.
You
I'm
are,
a no. I'm just loyal to my franchises.
yeah. But yeah, shall we start with our general thoughts and opening statement? Some might say,
I
maybe.
don't.
Go
Feels
on
like a
then.
good idea. Oh, you want me to go first?
Yeah.
I think Metaphor, ReFantazio is a great game that does a lot of things well. It is, if you've played any Persona game ever, then Metaphor is more of that. It's just more based in a fantasy setting rather than being in like a modern day high school. And if you're a fan of the Persona series, or you like the idea of the Persona series, but you've never liked the idea of being in high school, the Metaphor is indeed for you because it's just a beautiful fantasy world with a bunch of politics going on, a bunch of dragons flying about, and a bunch of weird and wacky stuff. And I just think it's an absolutely fantastic time. I think it's Atlus at its best. I think in terms of gameplay and just game design, Atlus have absolutely smashed it out of the park, and I think it absolutely clears any Persona game. Am I maybe more emotionally attached to some Persona games? Yes. Do I think that Metaphor is Atlus perfecting their formula? Yes, I very much do think so. It's just a great time overall. And I very much hope that we do get another Metaphor game in the future. Or at least Atlus's future games take a lot of inspiration from Metaphor because it does everything right, at least compared to any previous games that they've released.
What was your rating?
I gave it a 9 out of 10. I basically didn't give it a 10 out of 10 purely because I don't give a lot of things a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I usually sort of max out at 9. It's not that I don't give 10s, it's just a game has to do a lot. I feel like if Metaphor came out with a sequel and it was just as good, if not better, it would be an easy 10. But I think as a first iteration, it's a 9. It's the highest I can give it, at least for me.
Well, there we are. That actually leads me on to my opening statement because you were talking about the differences between the themes. I was really, really unsure about Metaphor to begin with because with the Persona games, that's really the only thing I like about the Persona games is I really like the story and the fact that it's set in a high school and I just really vibe with that type of world and the stories that are in it in those games. And I thought with Metaphor, I'm like, oh, that's my favorite thing about these games taken away.
Yeah.
But what it did. First of all, I played a demo because I wasn't sure I was actually going to buy the game. And after 5 hours of the demo, which is really good, the fact that you get 5 hours, we're pretty much. I think I ended up playing it for like 7 hours. Got really slow. But it made me realize that first of all, the world's pretty cool. But the thing which I didn't like about the Persona games really, which was the combat, they've fixed and made a lot better in this game, which was what ended up carrying the game for me. I thought the stories were really good, but it was the I was like in the Persona games, I would put it on easy and try and avoid as much combat as possible. But on Metaphor, I stuck on normal, and I was trying to do every single combat encounter possible, unless I ran out of mana. So yeah, it was just really good, and I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. The only reason why I didn't give it a 10 out of 10 was because the pacing issues towards the end. So yeah,
Fair, fair.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Lewis. I gave it a 9 out of 10. I thought the game was fantastic. I really loved the world that it was set in. There was just a few things where I feel like you were stuck with the first 4 party members for quite a while, and then the last 4 party members just sort of happened like that. Like you just got them all dumped on you, and I feel like you didn't get to spend as much time with like individual party members' stories compared to like the first 4. Like with Heisman, you was with him for quite a while before you got Juna, for example, and then when you got Juna, you immediately got Yufa. Is that a name?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my brain is not with it. But yeah, the game is fantastic. There was a lot of things with it where I was like, it needs a little bit of polish. Like, I don't understand why there was recipes for every single character when you don't cook with every single character, because you can't even give people like gifts or anything. From what I've like thingy. But other than that, like the game's fantastic. Gameplay is amazing. The setting is amazing compared to like Persona, for example, where you're just stuck in a high school. Um, but yeah, the game's just brilliant. You need to play it, even if it is 100 hours.
Brilliant. Well, you're talking about characters, and yeah, I also found that where you got your first 4, and then like for example with Basilio, it very much felt like a massive rush to do his story towards the end, and also it felt it didn't like line up with the pacing of like the stakes as well. Like because his story was towards the end, you think it'd be a bit more important because of everything else going on, but it was kind of like one of the more less impactful stories compared to the rest of the characters. But who was everyone's favorite character? Would you say?
Oh, Fidelio and Basilio, they're clear. They're Scouse dogs.
Scouse dogs,
Perfect.
Skogs.
Dogs.
I'd argue the Scouse cats personally, but
No, they're more, no, they're more the dogs.
Defo dogs.
the but no, because they're literally no, because the papyrus. Oh, that's not papyrus.
Porpoise.
Papyrus.
It's not papyrus. No, it's not
It's
papyrus.
porpoise. Isn't it?
Parapus. Parapus.
Parapus.
Parapus. That's the
Yeah,
one.
they're more like foxes.
Yeah, but a fox is
Yeah,
more like a
fox
dog
is
than
more
a cat.
like a dog.
No, fox isn't a dog. Fox is a cat. That's wrong. That's a bad take. That's a minus aura take if I've ever heard one. It's more of it's more they're more cats. That's how I perceive them. They're more cat-like to me. But Fidelio and Basilio were also my favorite characters. Basilio in particular. Um, Obviously Fidelio's character was just as good, but spoilers, he stops being in the story at some point. So it's up to Basilio to carry it. The game has a really good cast of characters, at least for me. I think a lot of the characters are contenders for being really good. Another character that I really liked was Yufa. I liked the dynamic of her not knowing anything about the outside world and her leaving it for the first time and experiencing stuff. I wish they did more with it, honestly, but I really like the idea of her learning about all the customs, and about all the other religions going on in the world and sort of perceiving the world in like a brand new perspective. I just thought that was really interesting. But it's difficult, or not difficult, but I imagine when you ask people who the favorite character is, there's like a lot of different answers just purely because the cast of characters is so large. And I think they wrote a lot of them to be very likable.
Yeah, I think Heisman is mine. I think the voice actor is just the best out of all of them, but also I think his story is really good. And also it helps that he carries you throughout the rest of the game. Once you get to like the second half of the game, like you just need him constantly in your party. But yeah, I think the UG is probably my favorite tribe out of all of them as well. I think there's pretty like Daredevil, but they can see, so they're better.
Not like Daredevil, even like
They
the
can
original.
hear
Yeah, they can hear, but
real good.
Daredevil's also just like blind, just like a blind guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
So
British
they're like
Heisman can
Daredevil, but
see.
they can hear.
So human.
I mean, see, not hear. Yeah.
So Heisman's just a normal human being.
They're the little bat guys. Like it's pretty crazy. Like,
They are
especially when we
little
find
bats.
out
Yeah.
about how like sort of like the rapid evolution happened after the war. Is like what happened to the Aegis? Why did they go so crazy when everyone else is like relatively normal? Like the what they called a Who Strolls tribe.
They
Oh,
are.
oh,
It was the main one,
It
or the one
was
that has the most people.
the Clamar.
Clamar, yes.
Yeah, like what did those horns do when like evolution wise. It doesn't really make any sense.
Oh
for
no,
me.
yeah. To be fair, I was thinking about that a lot, especially in the story when it explains that it hasn't even been that long since it all went down and the war happened and stuff. So I don't know why people evolved the way that they did and for what purpose they did. Like I said, Heisman's made sense, but Stroll's it's like he's just little lamb horns. He hasn't because if I remember correctly as well, I don't think that tribe has any sort of special power or any special sort of ability like to do with like their entire like tribe. They just have horns. I don't think
Yeah,
they have anything else that they can do outside of that. So yeah, I don't really get it.
and we find out those
Um,
horns are very easy to mimic as well. So you don't even need to be
Yes.
born to come on.
that reveal to me was really dumb. Like
Yeah,
it caught me off guard obviously because I didn't know, but I thought it was so dumb that he was just wearing some little ears with like a band on his head and he went ha. It was fake all along, and I was just sort of like, oh okay.
yeah.
It
It's
was
probably
just
some
it was just
social
very
commentary on how pointless the
yeah. Oh no, yeah,
divide
for sure.
is.
Oh
It
yeah.
just
Yeah,
it just felt very silly, and it just made me laugh, if anything, because it just really caught me off guard, and it was just because it was just such a stupid and simple disguise that when it was revealed, I couldn't take it overly serious. I was just sort of like, oh okay, like
yeah.
you got the custom ears made for him, and then just lied to everyone for an entire game.
I wonder who made them for him because they would have had to have kept it secret unless he killed them.
I'm sure he could have made them himself. It was just
It
a
might have
band.
just took
Maybe.
them off for Clamar,
Oh
and
yeah,
then
you could also rip them off
Oh
someone
yeah,
else and
true,
just
true.
glue them on a band.
yeah,
It won't very
well,
difficult.
buy a super glue from somewhere.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I liked all the mixtures of tribes. I liked all the different characters. I liked all the different settings. My issue is I feel like they could have spent a lot more time with a lot of them. I feel like some of them got more recognition and just a lot more focus than others. And there's some tribes that I would just prefer to get more of an in-depth look on. I feel like a lot of the game falls off in like the last 20 hours or so. I feel like there must have been a deadline that they had to reach because those last 20 hours compared to like the first like 50 or so, it's like the game like it's like the game goes at like 3 times speed compared to everything else in the game, and it tries to cram everything into the game in like a month.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
I just feel like it doesn't sit on anything, and people's motives for things just kind of start feeling a bit lazy because it's like they because of like the short time frame, they can't come up with like an actual reason for things happening. So they just sort of give the most basic reasoning possible for things, and you just sort of have to accept it. It's not awful. I just noticed it very much in the last like 20 hours of the game, and I didn't really notice that in the first 50. I felt like it was fine. It's kind of spoiled. I feel like the pacing is fine for me until the king. I'm sorry, not until the king, until the prince comes back.
yeah.
Yes.
And then after that, I think the pacing just gets really off. I feel like all of that just starts getting really weird after that. And it must have been a deadline issue. It has to be.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
I
the
think.
thing.
Oh, go on now.
I was gonna say, the pacing issues were really weird because like yeah, it was like the first 40 hours, it was like building up, and then that midpoint where all like the really intense stuff was happening, it felt like there was like 5 twists and a person's motive changed like 6 times. Like all like the perception of their motive anyway.
Yeah.
Like with Forden. Like it was like, oh, actually he did this. Oh wait, maybe he didn't. Oh, he kind of did. Oh, like
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
yeah, you know.
And Forden's whole thing just came across as just really just kind of silly and stupid. It wasn't really impactful what his plan actually was in the first place. Um,
It
and
was
it,
to quell the magic, wasn't it? So they
yeah,
wouldn't get
yeah,
another war.
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
which is sort of like fair, I guess. It's not completely unreasonable. You're just a bit of an asshole about it. But
Yeah.
he wasn't as to me, he wasn't as big and as terrifying and as horrible as he was being made out to be, as like the game was portraying him to be. Like, not to say he wasn't a bad person, but this guy was meant to be like the big bad. He was meant to be this person that we were meant to hate and resent after everything he did. And obviously he did do bad stuff, but he just felt kind of lackluster. I felt like it didn't overly hit. Um, like when you actually found out what his intentions are and what he's been doing. And I feel like that all ends really abruptly. Um, And yeah, Forden to me just came off as a wasted character. I expected a bit more from him, especially considering he was the front runner for winning the entire thing. Because you get him being crazy for like a whole like 2 minutes. Like
Yeah.
he's obviously normal the entire game and he like keeps up his facade, and then when you're on stage, he sort of lets out his crazy out a bit for like 2 minutes, and then obviously he's gone. That's it.
Yeah.
He's just done after that. And it just feels really weird. I can't quite put my finger on it or describe it unless you like play it. I don't think you'd understand. It's just it just feels very odd. And it really just feels like they sort of had to buckle down and just sort of go, yeah, we need to finish this now, so let's just let's just start wrapping it up. It feels like there's like 20 hours that have been cut from the game that have like a bunch more story and a bunch more like lore shoved in there.
Well,
And
this is where we're gonna get the
oh yeah, yeah.
royal version, the golden version, where it's
Well,
gonna
yeah.
have the entire story that we
That,
have missed, and it's like
but
you have to play the entire game again, which is gonna be
well,
annoying.
that's the worrying thing. It is possible that they did just remove content on purpose in order to reuse it for their new version of
Like
the
the
game.
definitive version, which is
Yeah.
another thing that Atlas. I hate it when they do this. It's like, oh yeah, this new game that comes out with this. Like, do I play it because are they gonna bring out this definitive version? But then when everyone says that Metaphor is like the game of the year, then I'm like, oh, I kind of have to play it then.
I mean, they will definitely bring out a definitive version that's not up for debate.
Oh yeah, I know.
They just will do it. Persona have done it for the past 25 years. Um, they do it consistently. And honestly, I think it is one of the scummiest thing that Atlus do. I understand re-releasing your games and giving people the opportunity to play them. I don't agree with releasing a game and then releasing the same game 4 years later with 10 hours of extra content, and then they go, this is the real version of the game in terms of um
Like
being
lore and story
no,
and stuff like that.
not even in terms of that. No, because the issue is those games are never the definitive versions. Persona 3, Fez is not the official canon version. The canon version is Persona 3. Persona 4 Golden is not the canon version. Persona 4 is the canon version. Same with Persona 5. The royal stuff isn't considered
Yeah,
canon.
because Persona 5 leads on into Strikers, not
Um,
Royal,
and they're gonna do the same thing with Metaphor, and it's
if
very
they make another
annoying because
one.
the content they're gonna make one. The content will be good, for this definitive edition that they will do, but I think it belittles the game a bit when you sort of release a game with a bunch of content and then go, none of this really matters, but it's like the better version of the game. And I know at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Like what's canon and what's not shouldn't matter. You can believe in whatever you want to believe in, and if you enjoy it, that's all that matters. But I just think it's very silly behavior from Atlas, and I still to this day don't understand why they do. Well, no, I do understand why they do it. It's money. I
Yeah.
just wish they wouldn't. I would prefer they release a finished game with all of the mechanics and then just release it, and that's it. Because you've not experienced this now, but if you play Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, all Persona 5 Royal feels like is what
It's
Persona
what
5
it's
should have been.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Persona 5, but a bunch of mechanics added to the game that make you go, oh, the gameplay that was dog shit in Persona 5 is now completely fixed. And it
Yeah.
comes across as they intentionally just didn't put it in the game so that they could release it later and go, oh, look at this spicy new feature, when it isn't really a spicy new feature. They just didn't want you to have it in the original game so they could just resell it again. And that's going to be annoying because we're all going to have to play Metaphor in like 2 years from now when they release that version. And I don't know, that just tilts me a bit. I don't like having to pay for a new game and then also replay the entire game. Especially when I've already played it one time and I've paid for it one time. I just think it's very annoying.
Do you think that
Um,
this new series, this new IP, is going to be serialized, or do you reckon it's going to be like Persona, where every game is a completely different story from start to finish?
it's difficult because I think it has to be like Persona, because thinking about a Metaphor sequel, so the thing with Metaphor is the world itself is huge.
Yeah.
And there's opportunities for many stories. I don't think we can have a story with our main characters anymore. I think
Unless it's
if
like a spin-off type game like Strikers, for example.
I don't think they'll do that with Metaphor. I think they'd give us a direct sequel just purely because the way they built the world up. But the issue is, well, not the issue. Sorry, I think the only way we're going to see the main cast ever again is as side characters. In like, if they release a sequel, they'll be set because obviously they have important roles in this world. They're pretty much all working for the government of the Grand. Is it Grand Trad? Is that what it's called?
That's
Yes.
what it's called, yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty much all work. So like they're like big political figures, realistically. So it would make sense to see them as background characters or side characters in another game. But I don't think we're going to play as them or they're going to be our main characters. I think if we get a sequel, it's going to be focused on a different person entirely or a different set of people. Because there's just nothing you can do really. I think with the main characters anymore. We did what we needed to do.
It felt so I know I haven't finished Persona 5, but it felt the ending felt very, very different to 3 and 4 Persona, in that it felt like they were sort of like winking at the camera, like this is what we're going to do next as characters. Because they were saying that like, oh, the world is much bigger than this island. We need to go and help other people as well. So, do you not think it could just be them going to a different place?
No, because I don't personally understand. Because first of all, and this is an argument you can make for any game, to be fair. First of all, if if you play a sequel with these characters, it's going to be really weird when you have to play a game where they're not going to have any of their archetypes, any of their abilities, any of their powers after they've just come off the journey of saving the world, and then the game's going to pretend like they don't have access to any of those powers or any of those abilities, which is just silly, and it will come across as just really odd storytelling. Even though they'd probably try and cram something in, they'd go, "Oh, the evil witch took away their powers, their archetype powers are now gone, and you must retrieve them once again." But in terms of like what they're doing, I feel like what Will no yeah Will, that's his name. I feel like what Will wants is something that can be done in the background that we do not need to see. He wants to unify the different nations and stuff. He wants them to all come together. I get that. But I feel like that doesn't require a grand adventure from the player. I'm sure they're going to come across things when they're exploring that world, but it seems a lot more political. It seems like it would be a lot more political and it would be a lot more focused on the dynamic of just like communicating with other cities and other nations. It's not like this first one where there was an entire tournament arc in which you had to win the throne by basically fighting the other kings. I just can't see a scenario where something like that is going to happen. And I feel like they're all too high status for the game to have any sort of like meaning that would make any sense. Like, what's going to be a challenge for these characters?
Yeah.
They beat literal super god. What is the challenge for these characters now? What situation can they be put in that would seem realistic from what they've just come from and wouldn't just seem stupid? That's why
Well,
I don't think
you
they'd
fight
probably
Mega
use it.
God, now you got to fight Mega Satan.
I
There
mean,
you
yeah,
go.
yeah, I guess. Like,
There we go.
I feel like it's much easier from a writing dynamic to give us new characters,
Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
can figure stuff out from there. Because the stakes don't have to be as high. Obviously, it's difficult to say because Atlus really love for some reason making you fight God. They really just think that's the pinnacle of storytelling. I don't know why they do that every single game, and people can argue that that isn't true. It is true. Literally, any Persona it's the same final boss. It's always fun, but it's the same final boss every single time. And Metaphor definitely doesn't stray away from that. And I think the best way to tackle a sequel would be to give us different people and lower the stakes. Because that's the one key thing about Persona, is even though they're set in the same universe, technically they are, it's always focusing on different people. And when they have to deal with this monumental task, it makes sense because the old people usually have either lost their powers anyway and they don't have access to their personas and stuff anymore, or it's completely detached from those people. So it would make sense why these people aren't involved in whatever's happening now because it's a completely different situation. In Metaphor, if we just stick with these characters, there's no stakes to me that make any sense that would be reasonable after what we just saw them do. it would be silly, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, and you can argue against that. If you can, please give me something, but I just can't. I can't see a scenario where it makes sense.
No, I think I agree with you, Lewis. I think it's going to take the Persona route where we get like new characters and stuff, and then maybe it'll be like because he's the new king or whatever. It'll be like he'll make like an announcement or whatever, like like he'll make like cameos like that or something.
But like they've also written themselves into not necessarily the hole, but it doesn't make any like in Persona. Not that there's necessarily a consistent way in which personas work. It's actually different in every game, but the way the archetypes work and the heroes work was very much based around Will and his accomplices. Other people, as far as I understand, aren't gonna get archetypes. It doesn't work like that. Because as far as I understand, it's basically reincarnations of old heroes. But and because Will is the king, then his like party are it's why they get those powers. So I don't. So no one else could get powers realistically based on
Yeah,
that magic system. So I don't. Yeah. So I get that's also a thing that I don't really understand how they tackle it. I don't really get it.
I think it'd be difficult, but I think that they could do because like they spent an entire game fighting for the throne, and I think an entire game of protecting it could be really interesting, because it could even like sort of do a time skip of they've gone around the world trying to unite them, and then it's caused a big divide of like essentially two sides, and I think that like the story of like countries switching sides and fighting, and like you're fighting people more than you're fighting humans could be really interesting. Like, and that would make the stakes high. But I mean, you're not fighting God, you're fighting each other. And I think like the writers who wrote this game would love that because it's just like it's a breeding ground for all the social commentary they want to do regarding the fact that the people are actually the biggest threat rather than like any outside threat.
I mean
And
that is true,
that
yeah,
could
and
be interesting.
I feel like they could do something with that, but you have to remember at the end of the day, it's a JRPG, and you need your big old monsters. They can't make a game where you just fight people. It's just not gonna happen.
That's true.
You
Well,
need you
speaking of
need
fights,
you need ghosts and monsters and ghouls to fight, otherwise it won't sell well.
I love a ghoul. Speaking of fights, what's your favorite boss fight?
Oh God.
Uh, let me get them up. Let me get
For
them up.
me, it
Yeah.
was sort of like I think it was. I kind of like the dragons, even though I hated them, just because they were proper. I felt real. It was the first time, and it was again. It was like I said, a bunch. It was a bit of a pacing issue because it felt like the first time I was actually challenged, in the game. But actually overcoming them felt really good. But I think it was the at the end of that quest line fighting like evil me. I thought it was quite a fun boss fight.
Um,
Personality.
the purple guy boss fight was slightly better than other games for me because they do this in like every Persona game where it's like you always fight the previous protagonist of a Persona game, but they're always stupidly overpowered. And I this was my issue with the dragons. It gave you a bit of leeway, but it's my issue with the dragons is that I don't like boss fights where pretty much the only way you can beat it is by following one very specific strict method.
Yeah.
Where you have to if you don't have these items, you don't have these moves, you haven't got these exact party members, you can't do it. I don't like fights like that because there's no strategy to that. That's just looking up a guide
Yeah.
and copying it so you can get. And I just think stuff like that's really good. I want to be able to figure it out myself. And the dragons kind of had that depending on which one you were fighting. I think
Mm.
there was one of them in particular where you really could sort of go at it with brute force and hope for the best. But there was, I think, two of them. Definitely one of them. You
The
just had
fire
to have,
one.
yeah, you just had to have very specific items. Otherwise it was impossible. You just couldn't do it. And I just thought that was very silly. I honestly think one of my favorite fights was the Moor fight. Um,
Oh yeah, that was good.
just due to the
Yeah.
story reasons attached to it.
Yeah.
I thought that was all really cool. And I just really liked that it transported you to what was it?
Like
Academia.
Tokyo.
Academia, yeah.
And then
Oh.
Well,
Tokyo.
it did take you to
Yeah.
Tokyo, yeah, but yeah, it took you to Academia and then it took you to fake Tokyo. I really liked that whole thing. It was really trippy, it was really cool. So I think Moor was probably my favorite boss fight. But I also
That's another example though. That's what this like. It felt like the twists and turns were sort of losing importance towards the end.
Yes, no, it
Because
was.
there was
Yeah.
so many fake
Yeah,
outs, and like they
yes.
utilized like sort of like the medieval style thing where like you don't have complete information, so you don't know everything. So like people would
Yeah.
just make assumptions all the time, and they'd be wrong. And then it was that thing which I was saying before in the middle of the game. But yeah, that there where it was like, oh, it's real. Oh wait, it's not.
Yeah, it's
Oh, but
not.
is it? Oh,
Yeah.
but it's not. You know, like
They
I was
they
like,
did.
am I getting excited or am I not? I don't know what I'm
Yeah,
doing.
they did do it too much. And again, it's very much like we said, it's that key part. It's once the assassination attempt happens, from that
Yeah,
point onwards, they just start spamming twists over and over again, but
yeah,
proper fake outs as well, and it is very annoying. Because the first couple times you're really excited, but then you just lose interest because you're like, this probably isn't leading anywhere. Like this
yeah.
probably isn't going to mean anything. It usually doesn't. They shouldn't have kept doing that the way that they did. And even at the end, like they do it again massively when you think everyone's dead, and then it's like, oh no, they're not dead.
No,
Yeah.
Everything's
it
fine.
was
Don't
very
worry.
anticlimactic.
I was hoping
Can
one
I
of them would
quickly say
die.
my boss
Oh yeah, go for it. Go
before we
No.
carry? Um, I liked the mechanic of the baby, where you had to take out its eyes when it was charging at you. I thought that was quite cool. That's probably up there for my favorite fight because of the strategies for it. I didn't really like the dragons because you had to like fucking wear a specific piece of armor that you needed to get. But honestly, the first fight with Luis was quite good because it was very anticlimactic. I thought it
the
was
first of
On the
19.
yeah,
the first
on
of
the glass
19.
ceiling, that first one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I
But
thought
I felt so
I
good.
was thinking like because obviously
Yeah.
you guys played it first and you guys were like, "Is this the end of the game?" It felt very end game of like you were gonna kill him.
Yeah.
Um, like if the
But you
game ended
did.
there, I would have been
You
what?
literally did kill him.
You
And
did.
then
Oh no, yeah,
he got
he got
resurrected.
resurrected. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
We
it's
didn't
like,
kill the
what?
Mercy.
But it's like, what's your favorite fight? Is it Luis 1? Is it Luis 2? Is it Luis 3? Is it
Probably
Luis
Luis one
4?
on the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
No, no, I was just making a joke that you fight him like
No,
that many
I
times.
know.
You fight him over and over
It is
again.
ridiculous.
Well, Louis
And
2
then you
was
fight.
annoying.
Is that in
Bec
front of the cathedral?
yeah, 'cause it ended before it ended. It's like,
Yeah.
Yes.
why? What was the point?
Um. Yeah, I think I had a good select. I think the entire game's like boss lineup was very good. If I'm being honest, I think overall it had very memorable bosses and it had very cool designs. I think the monster design, oh sorry, the human designs, they popped off for all of those. Um, and I was just really impressed with like the art direction stuff that he took for it. I thought they were all really unique and really creepy. Um, I don't know, I just thought they were all very, very good.
What was everyone's
I
favorite
do think it was
archetype?
really,
Oh, sorry.
I do think it was very lazy at the end that the fight before Luis would just fight all the bosses you fought in the game already again.
Yeah.
They just recycled that clearly again. Again, I feel like it was a deadline thing. That was all just recycled, and I felt that was really lazy, and it was just kind of it sort of ruined the impact of all the bosses as well. Because like I like when you just bring them back and just basically turn them into a standard enemy and just go, oh yeah, look, it's this guy again. It just sort of ruins the impact of beating them for the first time. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't overly like that part. What did you say?
Favorite archetype? Mine was definitely the assassin, I think. The fact that I could make bosses who have like a million turns just like lose all the turns. Like it'd be like a 50-50 chance when Heismay had like 100 evasion. Like that felt really good.
Oh yeah, Heismay when he got that ability for his royal archetype, where it was
Yeah, I never got any royal archetypes.
yeah,
throughout the
Yeah,
I still think that
you're
was
mad.
I still think
That's
that was ridiculous. It's because you didn't go back to academia,
Probably,
so
yeah.
more never
yeah.
explained. Because you
Yeah,
have to do
because
academia and more tells you, and then you unlock all for everyone.
Yeah. So I never got
that
that.
is like a downfall with the game because you don't have to go back to academia. I think the only reason I went was because I was finishing Moore's social link. It's what they call them. I can't
Yeah,
remember the handshakes.
yeah.
But and then when I went, it was I was finishing his story, but that's when I unlocked the royal archetypes. So that was when I figured out like how to actually do them. But like if I had already finished Moore's social link, I would never have any need to go to academia.
The funny thing is, I went back loads of times because my main way of leveling up was to basically I was farming, but I had a bunch of archetypes which were max level, but were like the best for farming. So I just got when you're max level, you just get a bunch of hero seeds,
You do.
and the only way you can use them is in academia. So I was in academia all the time using hero seeds to level up, right next to Maul. I just never spoke to him.
Wait.
You don't have to go to academia
What do
to
you mean
use
you
your
have to
hero
go to
seeds.
Academia to use hero seeds? No, you don't.
I couldn't
You just go in
find
your
them.
menu.
Yeah,
Just
I
go in the
couldn't find
menu
them.
in your items.
Yeah, you just
Yeah,
use
They're
your
at the
items.
bottom.
Yeah, so I couldn't find them in my inventory unless I was in academia. Like I only tried once and I couldn't find them, and I went in academia and I could find them. So then I just thought that was the rule the whole time.
Yeah, that's mad. No,
So
you
you
could
ne-
just use them
what? So you
anytime
never
you
so
wanted.
you never leveled up in a dungeon, unless it was at the cat save point.
Yeah,
To go
so I
to
waited to the
Academia.
cat and then went to academia and then did it.
That's mental.
Yeah, no, you don't need to. You literally just went to items and just went to the bottom and just
Yeah, I didn't see it.
used them. My favorite archetype was the summoner / devil summoner. I think it was called.
Okay, yeah.
Yufa's uh archetype. I thought that was like by far one of the best. It was just overpowered. It gave you access to like 15 different moves on like one archetype. Like you had basically every single counter to anything from one archetype. It was great. The worst archetype by far was the fucking mass dancer. It was shit. It was awful. And if you use the mass dancer, you were wasting an archetype. It was awful.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrible. Terribly
The
designed.
only thing it was good for was for getting MP in the overworld if you didn't want to waste your thingies. That's what I did.
No, barely. That even I thought that would be. I was so excited for that ability to find out that it gives you like 3 MP, and I was like, well, it's just useless then.
But that's
just
when your
doing
party
nothing for
members
me.
attack, right? You get MP.
Yeah, but if
Um,
you have it, you give it to everyone else. So I was just
Oh.
grinding against the enemies to gain MP, just so I
I don't
could
know.
have enough to
Yeah,
fight
I don't
Luis.
know.
Yeah,
I
I'll
don't
just
need that.
dodge rolling around everywhere, letting my teammates
Yeah.
hit them.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I did that
Yeah.
sometimes as well. I just thought it was really poorly designed. I could understand what they were going for. It didn't make sense because with the mask dancer, to basically explain it, is you have a bunch of different masks. If you put those masks on, it gives you access to the masks are based on other archetypes. If you put the mask on the character, it then gives you a move or a couple moves from that archetype, and you can use it on the mask dancer. But the thing is, you can just use the archetype or whatever mask you're mimicking instead, and it would be infinitely better. It doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense to use the mask. It's just a nerfed version of every other archetype. Um, and it's just really garbage. It was just, and there's a really shitty trophy. I know this is nothing to do with the gameplay, but there's a trophy where you have to get all the masks. And it takes absolutely forever because it's complete RNG on how you actually pick up these masks, and it's just, yeah, it was awful. It was terrible. Just a badly designed archetype.
You platinum the game, didn't you?
I did platinum the game. I'm the only one of all of us three to platinum it. It added about 15 hours onto my total playtime. I beat the game at about 70 hours, and then my platinum time was about 82, 83 hours. To anyone like listening, I honestly wouldn't recommend the platinum. Just because it's one of those platinums where you do have to play the entire game again, and this game has some very silly trophies where if you miss like some very specific things throughout the game, it makes getting that trophy impossible until a second playthrough. For example, you have to do every mission in one playthrough. Like you can't miss a single side mission.
I missed
If
one.
yeah, if you do, completely just gets rid of the trophy. So it means on your second playthrough, you'd have to have a guide up, and it would make your second playthrough worse because you wouldn't just be able to skip through the main story. You'd have to do literally everything again, every single quest in the game. Luckily, I didn't have to do that. I only had to clean up on some like miscellaneous trophies that was missing. I started to play the entire game again because you're required to. But it just wasn't overly fun playing it again. There wasn't any challenge in the second playthrough apart from you unlock one super boss um in the second playthrough that you can only fight on a second playthrough. And like I was talking about earlier, it was one of those bosses where it's impossible to beat unless you do a specific thing. So I just had to watch a YouTube tutorial to get it lined up and then set up for that, and it was all done. There was no strategy, no skill to it. It was just a bit boring, honestly. Like I'm happy I've got the platinum because I always try and platinum Persona games and stuff, but I don't think it's worth it. If anyone does want to go for it, I just think it's a waste of your time. And I do wish games would stop doing that. I know that's not metaphor related. I just wish games would stop making you play the game again. in order to get a trophy. I just think it's very silly.
Yeah.
That's so silly.
Anyway, my archetype that I really liked Gunner because I could just snipe enemies from afar.
That's good.
Rather than getting up close with them and risking getting them attacking me so they could get an advantage. I also really liked Faker as well. I love to gamble my thingy, my turns. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Yeah, I'd use it, and then sometimes I'd gain like 4 extra turns, and I'd just be able to like do so many like buffs, or like be able to like debuff the enemy, or like get loads of damage off. My favorite thing to do was use Faker with Juna, then use Charge with Basilio, then debuff it with Will, and then I'd pass the turns off back to Basilio, and then he'd just absolutely murder him. Like you'd do about 2k damage like first turn, just from
Yeah.
one charge, and then one heavy strike damage.
Well, that's one
But
thing
yeah,
with the
probably
game.
those two.
That's one thing with the game which I really liked. I really liked the turn order system. It felt a lot more strategic than in Persona. I felt like I was passing a lot more, like on purpose.
Yeah, like I feel
yeah.
like you'd purposely try and do a button pass in Persona, but with this, like, there's so many times where I'd just skip turn because I'd do more damage just from skipping my turn and make the crystal smaller than if I was to just like do an attack and waste a turn.
Because it only takes up half a turn, which I think is really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you've already got a half turn queued up, then if you pass it, then it takes a half turn rather than going
Yeah,
Yeah,
than a full
the
turn.
amount
taking
of
the full
times by
turn.
accident that I passed when I didn't mean to.
Oh,
yeah,
I did it.
I
I
did
did it
that
a
a few
load of times as
I
well.
completely
I'm like,
wasted
well, runs
it.
over, right?
Oh,
Restart.
I haven't spoken about one of the best things about the combat in this game, which
The
is
restarting.
yes, the restart in the battle.
Yeah.
I genuinely
Oh
think
yeah.
that's one of the best mechanics I've ever been witness to in a JRPG. Makes your life so much better, and people might think that it was overpowered from an outside view, like being able to just restart the encounter. It really isn't. It just saves you so much time. When you know you've lost the fight, you know it's just completely fucked. You don't have to waste your time then dying
Just
or waiting.
dying. Yeah.
You can just
Restarting is
reset it and
so.
then just go. Incredibly beneficial, super helpful. I'm not going to say I wish more games do that because games just aren't going to add that as a mechanic. But it's just it makes your life so much easier. The game respects your time in that manner.
Yeah.
It doesn't piss you about. It knows that sometimes you just get put in a scenario where like the first turn is just absolutely garbage and you just get smoked, or they're gonna do an attack where you like lose 2 of your party members, and you don't have any revival items. It's just it respects your time in that regard, and I just think it's just really good. It's just a very good mechanic that I do wish more games had because it makes your life a lot easier.
I really like them to go one step further and allow you to go back to your last save, like mid fight. Just because, like, even like for example, in a boss fight, when you know you've lost, but there's also no way that you can
Yes,
win it with
yes,
your current
that,
Yeah,
setup.
or like
yeah.
swap
Like,
swap your
That
archetypes. You're like, oh no, I'm weak to this, so if I
that
restart
happens.
the fight, I'm still gonna be weak to it. If I could go back to like
yeah,
that menu that they have sometimes where it's like swap my archetypes, swap my party
yeah.
around, like stuff like that. Yeah, no, I
It was
thought
weird
that I
how
think that would have been
inconsistent
way
that
good.
menu was as well. Like, it only appeared for like certain bosses, not all of them. But yeah, because like I would put it on auto, and at one time I was waiting for an hour, like just on my phone for the fight to actually end on
I
auto.
can see that. No, because I
Yeah,
was in situations where it was like, I have to die. Literally, what would happen? It would be a toss up, and it'd be like, I either restart the entire game, like I turn it off, reload it, reload the save, do it all, or I hopefully auto for long enough that they kill my entire team. And sometimes I'd gamble on the auto, and it would just take ages. But I'm
yeah,
already committed to it at that point, so I'm just like, I'll let it happen. But the AI can just be kind of garbage sometimes, so. It would lead to scenarios where I'm waiting 5 minutes, but I could have just reset the entire game and just done it that way instead.
yeah. It felt like regardless of what I put their like attitudes to be on auto, they would just try and sustain for as long as
Oh
possible.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, they would.
Yeah,
I think it's
and
built into it to try and not die. So
yeah. But yeah, I don't have any other questions. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
I don't think. I think we covered most of it.
Yeah.
At least to me, Alex might have something.
So despite all the negatives, in fact, yeah, Alex, do you have anything?
I'm trying to think. I don't think so. No, I think we covered like literally nearly everything.
I've got something.
Hey,
Oh my god, it's Oliver.
From the void. So with the high scores you gave it, are we thinking this might be a game of the year?
Well, it was last year.
Would it have been your game of the year last year?
Oh,
What was my game of the year last year?
Astrobot was really good, my guy. I can't.
Yeah.
Well, you
It's
did
hard
rate it
to-
higher, didn't you, Astrobot?
No, I think they both got 9s.
No, you gave Astrobot 10.
No, you gave it a 10.
Not on Haaland to be. Mm.
You
What was
didn't
your
put it
10
on
out of 10
Haaland
on Haaland
to
to
beat.
beat?
Oh,
Persona 3.
did I not? Did I not put it on Haaland to beat?
No.
You should have
that
done.
not what I was
Silly
doing?
goose.
No.
Well, Astrobot was just too good, man. I don't know. Astrobot won Game of the Year for a reason because it was Game of the Year.
Yeah, so there was Astrobot, another one you played was Rebirth, and you also played Balatro as well.
Oh, Balatro was so good. It still is so good. I'm still playing that to this day. It would have been Game of the Year contender. It wouldn't have won for me though. Astrobot still clears.
Yeah, for me,
There
it
we
would have
go.
won.
For you,
Yeah,
it would
for
have
sure.
won.
Just because you hate Astrobot.
Yeah, it would've.
How about Alex?
I don't hate Astrobot. It's just not as good as what you think.
It is. Alex, what about you?
It's difficult because I gave Astrobot a 10 out of 10, but I gave Metaphor a 9.
Doesn't sound difficult to me. It
Sounds pretty simple to me, that Alex.
Yeah, no, but it's like they got them for different reasons. I think I would have to give it to Astrobot, but Metaphor, if it fixed some of those quality of life stuff, it would have been a 10 out of 10. So it's going to be Astrobot.
Well, there we are.
Cool, that's all from me.
That's all from us, I think. Think we'll just end it there and say goodbye, I suppose.
Absolutely. Right.
Right.
I hope you
Goodbye.
enjoyed.